as we move on to pick 20, I was hoping for something here at 20. I didn't really want to mess with offense at 5. I was like, go and get a top tier defensive guy at 5, and then let's mess with some offense, because you've never had unless I'm forgetting somebody here, which is entirely possible. You've never had a true third receiver when Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf have been here. And Seattle went and they got, ideally, that, again, a lot of things can happen, in Jaxon Smith-Njigba out of the university. Well, I got to pronounce the apparently
Ohio
with them.
State.
Trying to freaking, oops, I almost said a bad word. Trademark the word the. Out of the Ohio State University, the highest drafted wide receiver ever, the top rated receiver in the draft. And I think then it went 3 receivers after him. So it was like the first time there's ever been 4 wide receivers in a row in a first round ever. He did deal with a hamstring injury last year, but the reports were out of the combine that he showed great explosiveness and looked smooth in routes, so that helped him smooth some things over. Before I say anything, this pick, I'm very curious about it. Again, the defense was pretty bad for a large amount of the time last year. But you go with offense here, and you help that. You give Geno another weapon. You give the Seahawks another guy to put on the field to get maybe DK and Tyler open, or maybe those guys get Smith-Njigba open. So what did you think about the selection here out of Ohio State?
I liked it. He was the first wide receiver pick of the draft. Like you said, and he's said that he's good at getting open. So either he gets a DK Metcalf open, Tyler Lockett open, or he's open himself. I definitely like the pick. I think that a third threat was a good idea, considering that we do not have Goodwin anymore this season. So a triple threat for sure is the best. I think Tyler Lockett has had really good numbers, and it's kind of gone under the rug, or it just hasn't been as seen as it should be. But if he can relieve some of that pressure and get some of the touches, yeah, I like the pick.
I definitely do think he has an advantage as a rookie with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett lining up with him. It's going to open him up a lot because everybody's going to be trying to putting their attention on to the other wide receivers. So a lot of people compare him to CeeDee Lamb, but I like to think of him as a Doug Baldwin in the system. It's exciting to see where he's able to add to the offense.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned that. And if you're Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator, you kind of have a luxury here now, because I think I talked about it with Bell last year, but I thought Marquise Goodwin wasn't bad. That's fine.
Yeah.
But you really get somebody who's able to line up inside, outside. I think you were alluding to this when you mentioned it. I think a quote immediately after he was drafted was, "I get open," and it's like, hey, that's a good thing to have, right? But you get another weapon. I know going into training camp, that was a battle. It was like, who's going to be the third guy? And Marquise Goodwin was a late training camp addition, I believe. And he took that role when he was healthy. You've had other guys. Freddie Swain used to be here. I think was Swain actually with the Packers late. I think he was. I could be wrong. I'll look that up in the background. But, I know they've drafted a few guys last year. Derek Young was there. There's just a bunch of guys that didn't pan out. Right. And they go and spend a first round pick on a wideout here. So, I mean, he was with Denver. That's who he was with. Never mind. He's with Miami now. Ignore Freddie Swain. But yeah, you haven't had a third guy in a while, to me, it feels like. And obviously it's great to have those two, but then you put him in the slot, or you move Tyler into the slot. Imagine moving DK Metcalf into the slot. Right. You can kind of mess around with things now. And it's like, even with Seattle right now, right? We just talked about Devon Witherspoon. You've got Witherspoon and Woolen. Who are you matching up with if someone has a third guy? Not many teams have a third corner like that. If you're going to go man, if you're going to go defense, the guy, as he says, gets open. So, I really like it. I enjoy being able to have that sort of luxury there. I call it a luxury because, again, you haven't really had that, to enjoy that third weapon. And then however Seattle chooses to get tight ends involved, whether that is Disley or Noah Fant, maybe Kobe Parkinson, you know what I mean? But definitely some options there, and excited for that going forward, just because, again, it's exciting to me because we really haven't had 3 solid guys in this era of Seahawks football with Pete Carroll. It's mainly been the focus on running the football, and they'll have 2 guys. Matt mentioned Doug Baldwin. You had Doug Baldwin and Jermaine Kearse. That's 2 guys, though. And then it was kind of like, I mean, Sidney Rice was here and there with that team, but he dealt with concussion issues, so it's like, I mean, Golden Tate as well, but then there was that whole thing with Golden Tate where there was controversy, so all in all, it's just going to be a lot of fun. Not the biggest guy out of Ohio State, pardon me, and not necessarily the fastest, but really solid production when healthy. And just, it was funny because I believe Chris Olave used to be there with Ohio State. There's another wide receiver Paris Campbell, I think, might have been there at the time, and he was the best. Jaxon Smith-Njigba was the best option there at Ohio State. So I think I wanted to go into that because I think it's a ton of fun to have another talented receiver that can pair off of the size and speed of Metcalf, the craftiness of Tyler Lockett, and give Geno Smith another weapon after the year that he had. So I'm sorry.
Definitely.
That just got me really excited when I saw that pick, and I was like, "Hey, you've got someone else to throw the football to." So I don't know
Yeah.
if you've got anything else on Smith-Njigba, but I think
Well,
that'll be
you
a lot of fun.
mentioned, yeah,
know.
you mentioned putting him in the slot and not being sure exactly where he was going to be, but Seattle did have the last season they were 8th fewest in the NFL for receiving yards in the slot, and
Jeez.
in 2021, and Jigba on his own had 1,400 receiving yards in the slot. So that's somewhere that he can possibly bring us some yardage. Yeah.
Most definitely. I'm very excited to see the matchups that they're going to have between the wide receiver and cornerback in practice.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be good. Yeah, so you mentioned that, and I think going back to that first pick, Witherspoon he had more interceptions than he allowed yards. So, yeah, that's going to be a fun matchup.
Yeah, competition begins in practice, right? So, yeah, that's a good call. It'll be fun to see those guys push each other, especially getting 2 of those position groups in the first round.